Well, hi everybody, welcome to Afterburner. I'm Bill Whittle. Do you remember those heady days of just a few years ago when the single greatest piece of legislation in American history, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, was being shoved down the collective throats of an ungrateful and ignorant America too stupid to appreciate such magnanimity and largesse? Remember when former Democratic National Committee Chairman Howard Dean and others savaged former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin and others for their opposition to the death panels, the Independent Payment Advisory Boards, or IPAB, healthcare rationing boards that would determine once and forever after who would get treatment and for how long? Remember how they said there would be no rationing, and if there were, how it would be a good thing and wise? Remember when people like Howard Dean vilified Sarah Palin for making statements like these back in 2009? The IPAB is essentially a healthcare rationing body, or the essential mechanism of the IPAB has a 40-year track record of failure, or, most important, once again, these kinds of schemes do not control costs. The medical system simply becomes more bureaucratic. Or, the Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office has indicated that the IPAB in its current form won't save a single dime before 2021. Or, the IPAB has no possibility of helping to solve this major problem and will almost certainly make the system more bureaucratic and therefore drive up administrative costs. Or the IPAB will cause frustration to providers and patients alike, and it will fail to control costs. Or getting rid of the IPAB is something Democrats and Republicans ought to agree on. Remember when Sarah Palin was demonized for those destructive and partisan comments? Well, unfortunately, those quotes were not from Sarah Palin in 2009. They were from Howard Dean just a few days ago in 2013. In 2009, Sarah Palin and Republicans were called heartless and treasonous for opposing this disaster. Now that we've had the disaster foisted upon us, it's Democrats like Max Baucus who are calling it a train wreck. Remember when we were told that the individual mandate was not, could never be, can't possibly be construed as a tax? Because if it were a tax increase, that would violate Barack Obama's tax pledge. Well, the Supreme Court ruled that it is a tax, perhaps the greatest tax increase on the middle class in American history when all is said and done. Remember when former Speaker Nancy Pelosi told us we'd have to pass the bill so that we could find out what's in it? Well, now that we know what's in it, everyone who is anyone is using the very best corruption, cronyism, and political favors that money can buy to get themselves exempted from this great gift to the American people. Entities ranging from Allied Building Inspectors, Local 211 Welfare Fund, to Waffle House comprise the, what is it now, 1,200, 1,400 companies and organizations that have successfully removed themselves from the loving arms of the rationing boards. And most appalling of all, to me anyway, is the fact that foremost among these groups using their influence to extract themselves from this curse on the American people are the core constituencies of Barack Obama, Howard Dean, Nancy Pelosi, and Harry Reid, public sector unions like SEIU, and most impressively of all, we now discover, the National Treasury Employees Union, representing those loving patriots in the Internal Revenue Service. They want their membership out of the way of this train wreck, too. That's really it, isn't it? Isn't that it? The most appalling thing about all of this is that we know that compliance with Obamacare will be strictly enforced by the IRS. In other words, the people tasked with enforcing compliance with Obamacare are lobbying strenuously to be exempted from Obamacare. Hey, remember the days when your health care was not rationed by the government or enforced by the Internal Revenue Service? Remember the days before trillion-dollar annual deficits? Remember the days before drones overflying American cities? Do you remember the days before the IRS was institutionally punishing political dissent? Remember the days when the NSA spied on foreign agents rather than American citizens? Remember the days when a filmmaker could make a movie about Muhammad without being thrown into a dungeon? Remember the days when the most powerful man in the world would refrain from commenting on a criminal case? Remember the days before the leaders of the nation would inflame racial passions for personal political gain? Remember when we used to say, hey, it's a free country? Remember the days before this guy?